Hello everybody! JGC Anime here today, where to review I Was Reincarnated as a 7th Prince so I can take my time perfecting my magical ability. So, yeah, without further ado, let's just hop right into it. So what is the story behind this anime? Basically, we follow our main character Lloyd, who, after dying in his previous life by magic, which he's obsessed with, he reincarnates into this new body as the 7th Prince, and since he doesn't have the same problems that a lot of the other princes have, he's allowed to just go around and, work on perfecting his personal magical abilities due to his obsession with magic. And basically that's how the story begins, just him just trying to study some new magic and understand more about it, since he just loves magic a lot, while also living this new life and seeing how it goes. But yeah, that wasn't really a story summary, but the title basically says exactly what happens at the start, so we're just gonna roll with it. So, in terms of spoiler-free thoughts for this anime, I am not afraid to admit that this definitely has to be one of my favorite non-isekai fantasy anime. Like, it's what I feel that Misfit of Demon King Academy Season 2 should have been. Not in the same sense of what the characters were like and stuff, but in the sense of just an overpowered protagonist, clearly just enjoying things and having fun, and just being a character that you just can't help but enjoy watching because he's just so entertaining to watch. And that is the case here with Lloyd. Now, there is some questionable stuff with Lloyd. In fact, Lloyd and another character who comes into the story later called Ren both have some questionable scenes that I would rather not talk about for too long because they just weren't very interesting to me. Like, they just made me more uncomfortable more than anything. But I just wanted to make sure I cleared that out, that I was not a big fan of those scenes, and hopefully if they can, I'd like them to tone that down in season 2. But I am glad that we are getting a season 2 because I absolutely love this anime. I think it is just so much fun. As I said before, this is what Misfit of Demon King Academy Season 2 should have been. Just more entertaining, just fun, and overall just interesting stuff following our main character Anos in that story. However, instead it just goes for a bunch of love stories and other stuff and just not very interesting ideas that just don't really interest me that much. But then in its place, we have this show. A story that follows Lloyd, a 10-year-old Shota main protagonist, who's just so much fun to watch. Like, he is a maniac, he is crazy, the story itself is really interesting, and to my surprise, I never found myself growing bored at all this season. Like, watching the first season of this show, I'm amazed how despite watching all 12 episodes and stuff, there was never an episode where I thought it was boring. There were episodes I thought were weaker than others, but none of them were boring. I still enjoyed every single one. I really loved the comedy in it. I really enjoyed the actual story that, despite the fact that it has a lot of generic traits inside of them, they do them in a way that is just really freaking fun. And overall, there's just so much charm to this story. Like, ignoring all the weird fan service and stuff like that, the show itself is just so much fun. It is so entertaining. I love it. And it's kind of sad that not so many people gave this show a shot, because this show really hits me exactly where I love my comedy. Like, it hits up there with some of the other shows I really love, like Love is War and The Eminence Shadow, two other comedy series I really enjoy for their comedy, and I just laugh so hard at those shows. And it's the same case here with this show. Like, Lloyd and everyone else, they're so funny, and the comedy really strikes hard, and I just can't help but laugh so much every single episode. There's so many laughs. I enjoy myself so freaking much, and it's really hard not to repeat myself a lot. It's just, it was so much fun. It took the overpowered protagonist trope and made it entertaining again. We don't see too many overpowered protagonists that are entertaining these days, so I was very happy to see that. And I'm really happy that despite the fact that I went into this with practically no expectation, in fact, I went into it planning to not really check it out at all. I was just kind of thinking, whatever, it's one of the shows on the to-watch list that I wanted to try to do, so might as well. And I was shocked to find that I actually really freaking loved this show. I watched every new episode every single week it came out. I just really enjoyed how much fun it was. It was legitimately such a treat, and I loved it. It was so freaking good, and I'm so glad that I gave it a shot because it is amazing. It is fantastic, and while I wouldn't say it's the best show ever, of course there's no show that is, it's still so good. And while it's probably not for everyone, there are definitely some people who will be put off by Lloyd's appearance. That might be a bit iffy on it, since, the whole trait of a Shota protagonist isn't exactly the most appealing to a lot of people, which I understand that, and it's the same for me as well, but I still wanted to give the show a shot regardless, and I'm glad I did, because as I said, I still really enjoy it. Lloyd's personality, being this crazy lunatic who loves magic, is so much fun, and I don't really want to talk about too many of the other characters because there's a lot of spoilers in there, but the other characters are also really freaking great in this. Some of the other pieces of the comedy, not just some of the main jokes, are really funny too. There's like these little chibi shorts in there that they squeeze in midway through the episode sometimes, and they're really funny. And the show just overall, it's just great. I really enjoyed myself, and I had a blast, and I'm very excited for season 2 because I'm curious to see where Lloyd goes next with his adventures. And that's all I can really say without spoiling, so we're just gonna hop to the spoiler section now. Here's a timestamp to the end of the spoiler section, so if you haven't seen the show, you skip to the end, so that way you don't get any spoilers and you can hear my final thoughts. But if you have seen the show, I recommend sticking around and hearing my thoughts. So yeah, we're gonna count up to 5, and I'm going to enter the spoiler section. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is how much I love Lloyd's development throughout the course of this whole season. Like, for the most part, he's still a crazy maniac who loves magic. He's still so much fun, especially with how he's just clearly is indifferent to a lot of things, and he's just entertaining to watch. However, there's clearly some care behind it, since near the end of the show, we have this one big storyline that goes on for multiple episodes, and it involves a group of characters who have a group known as the Assassin's Guild, and basically their big leader has been possessed by a demon and he's already dead and stuff like that. I don't want to dive too much into details because it's just such a good storyline. I'd rather people go watch it for themselves because it's really freaking good. And during that part, it shows that Lloyd isn't entirely indifferent as he was at the start. Like, in the early parts of the story, when his whole group is being attacked by demons, they're literally being covered in like this miasma thing that's created by this one demon who's trying to take control of them all and stuff like that. Basically, he's just entirely indifferent to it. He does not care. Even though these people have been growing with him ever since he was born, he just does not care about them at all. But then you have this assassination group who were all betrayed by the demon who was possessing their leader, and you just see Lloyd get somewhat pissed off at it, and it was really entertaining to see him just soon enough take down this demon and stuff like that and set Jade, the leader of this group, free. And it's just, I'm amazed at how invested I got in that story. Like, I thought it was gonna become a bit boring since it was taking way longer to finish than any of the other stories within this season, but I was invested the whole way. Like, other than one episode which focused mostly on Silpha, Lloyd's maid, other than that, the episodes just flew by. That one episode was pretty good overall, but it wasn't as strong as the rest of the episodes, because the rest of the episodes just blew by so fast. I couldn't even believe how they were over so fast. It was crazy. I just loved how fast they went by. It was so entertaining. And I want to talk more about that Jade stuff later, since I do think that storyline is really freaking good. But I want to kind of go back a bit to talk about some other stuff, since there are some things in there that I want to discuss and say about how I was not a massive fan of them, though they're kind of minimal. I already talked about the Lloyd and Ren fan service stuff, so I'm not going to discuss that. The one thing I do want to talk about, though, that I was never a big fan of, and I still am not a big fan of even at the end of the season, is Silpha's romantic love for Lloyd. Because Silpha, I'm pretty sure, is in like her 20s or so. Meanwhile, Lloyd is like 10 years old, and that just made me uncomfortable, man. I know it seems stupid to say, because, you know, it's a harem type situation where there's going to be girls from all kinds of different ages who will fall in love with this man. But dude, even though there are stories where characters who are like hundreds of years old will fall in love with the MC, who's usually like maybe 16, 17 or so on, there's just something off about having a child being the person who gets a harem. And when it came to the Silpha and Lloyd stuff, there was just something about that made me super uncomfortable. I was not a fan of it. And the fact that she just blushes when he makes her a sword and stuff like that, and it's just like, you could tell she's interested in this man. It's just, he doesn't really interest me that much. In fact, it's one of the more concerning aspects of the story, though it does create some pretty funny scenes. So I'm giving it somewhat of a pass. I just don't love it. It's just one of my small, tiny gripes I have with the show, minus the other thing I mentioned. But yeah, still a very enjoyable show, and it wasn't like there wasn't some other stuff for other people, like how there's some Silpha fan service in there. But personally, just didn't care too much for the Silpha love stuff, and we're just gonna move past that now. So yeah, even with those things in mind, I still absolutely love the show's comedy. The stories are really interesting and investing. I just have so much fun with characters that hang around Lloyd, like Grimm, as well as his brothers, Albert and Dean, who Albert definitely has some fun spotlight in this show. I really enjoy how he loves Lloyd enough as a brother to just kind of be concerned about him. And the fact that literally he thinks that Lloyd was kidnapped, so he's like, to war against this country that we thought kidnapped Lloyd. It's so funny. It was so good. And Albert definitely has some spotlight in this season as well. It's just so much fun. And they aren't the only really good characters in the show. One of my favorites definitely has to be Tao, who's this girl who's just like obsessed with finding a boyfriend, to the point that when she finds Lloyd, who transformed himself to look like he was older and stuff, she was like, oh my gosh, that's such a hot guy. What am I supposed to do in this situation? And it's just so funny. I love their interactions. I wish there was definitely more Tao this season, though we got a good chunk of Tao, thankfully. We got quite a bit. I very much enjoy her character. She is one of the funniest characters in my opinion. and I definitely enjoy her, and I think that hopefully we'll get to see more of her in the next season since she's fun. Her and Lloyd's interactions, as well as her and Albert and everyone else's interactions, are all super fun. And even her stuff with Silpha, where they're kind of like having a unintended rivalry just because they both kind of have an interest in Lloyd, although one is just actual Lloyd while the other is what Lloyd can turn into. But it's still very fun. I enjoy that a lot. And while the main villains of the show are mostly just characters who either get one shot by Lloyd or eventually get taken out, they're still really fun to watch for the most part. There are some that are a bit uncomfortable to watch, but that is fine because the show is still so much fun, and the fact that Lloyd just beats them all up for fun afterwards is the best part. But I still think the villains are fun, especially when we get to the big bad villain of this season, which is this thing called Gizarm, which is like a demon lord who has taken over Jade, the leader of the assassin group's body. And they do a phenomenal job at making you hate this man. Like, it's not just a, oh, hey, surprise, this is a twist. Jade is not in control of his body anymore. He died, and now his body's just being controlled by this demon lord. They actually have you just fully take it in. Like, the episode where it's revealed, they literally roll the credits like 7 or so minutes early. I don't know the exact timing, but around that point. And then you start to wonder, okay, something's gonna happen here. What's going to happen? And then after that, when they do the reveal, they do it in such an intense way. And they don't just have Lloyd just come in immediately and start helping out. They actually drag out this scene to make you hate Gizarm. You just absolutely despise the man. Just make you hate this guy, especially with how he just mocks the Assassin's Guild and how he claims how he doesn't know any of their names. But dude, then after that, after all the torture he put them through, and the fact that Ren, after she was asked by this fake Jade, Gizarm, after she was asked, all right, who helped you guys control your powers, which you guys didn't have control over before, then Lloyd just shows up and is just like, that be me, and then just almost kind of nukes the whole place like an I am atomic moments. It's so good. The only shame is that nobody actually died in that attack, or maybe some did, but most didn't. But still, that scene was so cool, and the whole fight between Gizarm and Lloyd, while his family members and Sylph and everyone else show up a bit later because they claimed that they were gonna go to war, only to end up helping in this whole demon plot. It was so freaking good, and I loved so much of it. And as I said, the only real kind of awkward episode is the one with Silpha that mainly focused on her, which even then, it wasn't a bad episode. It showed that Silpha was improving herself and helping herself grow even stronger, which was really nice. But I more enjoyed the fights between Lloyd and the character, since he's just such a carefree character that seeing him actually get serious was really entertaining, because it's just like, oh wow, he's been goofing off this whole time, but he's actually getting serious to fight Gizarm, since Gizarm is actually really freaking strong. And it was just such a good anime, man. The soundtrack as well. Not every single song in this show was extremely memorable, but there are so many soundtracks in this show that really stuck out to me. Like, there's like this rock soundtrack that plays during some of the fight scenes, and there's also some really fun, chilling, relaxing music as well that's fun to kind of bop your head to. Just there's so many nice little soundtracks in here that I really enjoyed. And I know I maybe sound like I praise the show way too much, because it really, at the end of the day, plays into a lot of the generic tropes at times, but even so, I still absolutely love this anime. Especially with how Lloyd, since he's so obsessed with magic, he just becomes crazy. Like, this man is mentally insane. He is so freaking crazy, and you don't even care because he's so much fun to watch. Even though he literally will do anything for magic. He was literally ready to die for the sake of magic, where after Gizarm is just shouting out saying, die. After that, Lloyd's just like, should I dodge it or should I see if it actually kills me? And it's up to Grim, the demon he ended up bringing to his side at the beginning of the show, because Grim didn't want to die, so he basically pledged his loyalty to Lloyd in order to survive. And after that, Grim's just like, dude, just dodge. Grim's just crying the rest of the fight. It's so good. It is so much fun, and I absolutely loved it. And just, dude, it was such a great final last storyline. Like, I was surprised at how, despite the fact this went on for so long, it was so freaking good, and I loved it. And the whole show just was such a great time. I loved it so much, and I'm very glad I sat down and watched it, because it was just so much fun. So many hilarious moments, including the fact that they not only make little chibi shorts midway through the episode sometimes to explain some things, but they also use it to also explain the magic of that world in a way that's super easy to grasp and doesn't really make you feel stupid for not understanding how it works. But also, it adds in the chibi art to have some fun sometimes, like how while Lloyd is fighting Gizarm, he ends up creating a bunch of stone clones, and rather than having them all just look like Lloyd, Lloyd. Most of them are in this like this chibi state. It's just so funny to watch because the whole thing is just hilarious. It is amazing. And yeah, I just really enjoy this show, especially with how at the very end Lloyd decides to take the Assassin's Guild under him as kind of like servants and decides that he's going to watch over them for the time being. And you get the sense that he's doing this out of respect for Jade and also to help them instead of just being a more magic test subjects. And it was really nice. And overall, I just really freaking love this anime, and I'm so glad I watched it because it's just so good. There's so many parts to it that keep it entertaining, and I can't really say I ever got bored while watching because it was just so much fun. The cast is great, the story is great, and overall, I just really enjoyed myself. And yeah, that's all I have to say. So we're at the conclusion of this video. One of my final thoughts? Overall, this show is pretty fantastic. I wouldn't say it's a perfect 10 out of 10 show, but it is so much fun to watch, and overall, I'm very excited for season 2, and I'm very curious to see where Lloyd's adventures take him next. And yeah, overall, I give I Was Reincarnated as the 7th Prince so I can take my time perfecting my magical ability a 9 out of 10. Very enjoyable, some very sus things in there sometimes, but overall, still very much enjoyed it. And yeah, I liked it a lot, and I look forward to what comes next. And yeah, that's all I have to say, so thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I was going to anime fans to the channel, and I will see you all around. Peace!